Carlos King, the mastermind behind Love and Marriage Huntsville, has finally broken his silence on Martell Holt's actions, and his words are sending shockwaves throughout the fanbase. Over the years, viewers have watched as the drama between Tampres Pamber Martell and his ex-wife Melody unfolded on the show, and it's clear that their relationship has been anything but simple. From infidelity to bitterness, accusations, and public humiliation, their relationship has been messy, to say the least. However, it wasn't until Carlos King stepped into the spotlight and began to speak out that the full extent of Martell's behavior began to truly be called out. Carlos, as both the executive producer of the show and the host of the reunion specials, has witnessed the drama unfold up close and personal. However, due to his position in the show, Carlos had to remain neutral for a long time, withholding his personal opinions in order to keep things balanced. But with the latest reunion episodes now aired, he has made it clear that he is done holding back. He is no longer playing the role of the neutral host and producer, and instead, he's offering a raw and unfiltered perspective on the situation. Carlos's frustration with Martell's behavior is palpable. One of the first things he called out was Martell's tendency to constantly play the victim. Over the course of their post-divorce interactions, Martell has repeatedly tried to paint himself as the one wronged in the situation. Carlos was quick to point out how tiring this has become, especially since Martell has been the one who caused the rift between him and Melody. Instead of taking responsibility for his actions, Martell has consistently tried to shift the blame onto Melody. Carlos said, "Stop being the victim all the time. It gets on my nerves," and you can hear the frustration in his voice. He's clearly had enough of Martell's antics, and he's not afraid to say it. What's particularly interesting about this is that Carlos didn't just criticize Martell for his public behavior, but also for his underlying mindset. During a sit-down with Dustin Ross, Carlos took a deep dive into Martell's psychological patterns and how they have contributed to the toxic cycle that's been playing out for years. One of the things that Carlos highlighted was Martell's get-back mentality. Instead of reflecting on his mistakes and taking accountability, Martell's primary focus has been to retaliate, to make Melody look just as bad as him. This constant back and forth of revenge has not only created more drama, but has also prolonged the toxic behavior between them. According to Carlos, this behavior is not just unhealthy, it's dangerous. It feeds into a cycle that keeps the conflict alive, even when it should have ended long ago. Carlos made sure to make it clear that Martell's actions are more than just bad choices. They are indicative of a deeper character flaw. This flaw, according to Carlos, is preventing Martell from growing, both personally and professionally. His refusal to take responsibility for his actions is a huge roadblock, one that has kept him from improving his reputation and mending his relationships. Instead of looking inward and making amends, Martell continues to double down on his toxic behavior, brushing off concerns, deflecting blame, and refusing to take ownership of his role in the breakup and the ongoing fallout. It's a pattern that Carlos said is keeping Martell from achieving any kind of personal growth or redemption. But what makes the situation even more intriguing is that Carlos didn't stop at Martell's actions toward Melody. He also brought up the possibility that Martell's bitterness isn't solely directed at Melody. In fact, Carlos questioned whether Martell might secretly resent Marcel for the success that Marcel and his wife Tisha have achieved in recent years. A few years ago, Martell was the man with the wife, the family, and the career. Meanwhile, Marcel and Tisha were still trying to get a foothold in the world of business and family. Fast forward to today, and the tables have turned. Martell is struggling with his personal life, his business ventures are taking a hit, and his reputation is in shambles. On the other hand, Marcel and Tisha are growing their businesses, strengthening their marriage, and moving in a positive direction. So, does Martell resent Marcel for achieving the life he lost? Carlos put that question directly to Martell, and Martell's response, "I'm not rooting for them, but I'm not rooting against them," was telling. If you have to clarify that you're not rooting against someone, it already says a lot about where you stand. The entire situation between Martell and the other cast members reached a boiling point during the reunion, with Carlos pointing out the fact that Martell had burned so many bridges that it's hard to see a way forward for him. Martell was on the receiving end of some serious reality checks during the reunion, with the entire cast calling him out for his actions. Melody, who had been dealing with Martell's attacks for so long, barely needed to speak at all. She simply let the facts speak for themselves, and the facts were not doing Martell any favors. Even Marcel and Tisha, who usually avoid direct confrontation with Martell, couldn't ignore the toxic pattern of behavior that he had been exhibiting. In fact, Marcel made it clear that while he had his own issues with Martell, even he wouldn't have taken things as far as Martell did. Tisha, too, called out Martell's repeated bad decisions, noting that he continually chooses to make the same mistakes, even when given opportunities to do better. It's clear that the entire cast has become fed up with Martell's antics, and they're no longer willing to let him off the hook. What's more, viewers also rallied behind Melody, with many fans expressing their support for her strength and resilience in the face of Martell's ongoing drama. They were not just disappointed in Martell's actions, they were done with him. The audience has grown weary of his constant need to play the victim while simultaneously being the one causing the drama. Carlos, for his part, made it very clear that Martell's behavior isn't just damaging his relationships with Melody and the cast, it's also ruining his reputation. At this point, Martell seems to have alienated himself from just about everyone, including the fans. Carlos summed up Martell's situation perfectly. Martell is not just reckless, he is self-sabotaging. Every move Martell makes seems to push him further away from redemption. Instead of learning from his mistakes, he continues to deflect, justify, and deny responsibility. His behavior is not just the result of a few bad decisions, it's a pattern that has been playing out for years, and it's keeping him stuck in a cycle of toxicity. Carlos made it clear that if Martell doesn't change his ways, his future on Love and Marriage Huntsville could be in jeopardy. At this point, it's hard to see a path forward for Martell. He's burned so many bridges, lost so much favor with the cast and the fans, and has repeatedly shown no real remorse for his actions. So, what's next for Martell? Can he redeem himself, or has he finally gone too far? That's the big question that fans are grappling with. The reality is that if Martell continues down this path, his days on the show may be numbered. His behavior is not only damaging his relationships on screen, but is also leaving a negative impression off screen. At this point, it's hard to see a way for him to bounce back, especially with so many people calling out his actions. In the end, Carlos King's raw and unfiltered take on Martell has left a lasting impact. The truth he's spilling is exactly what many fans and cast members have been thinking for years. Martell's pattern of revenge, his inability to take responsibility for his actions, and his continued self-sabotage have all contributed to his downfall. And as much as he tries to play the victim, the reality is that his actions speak louder than his words. Now, the question remains, will Martell change his ways, or has he burned too many bridges to ever come back from this? Fans are waiting to see what happens next, but one thing is for sure, this drama is far from over.